Well, hello, everybody. Happy New Year. If you're watching this in real time, it is January. It's that time of year that people start thinking about, if they haven't already, what do I want to accomplish this year? What type of goals should I have? And how should I plan and so forth. So I am very happy to be here today and share this time with you with the goal guru, Megan Wagner. Megan and I met, I think, through ICF, right? Through the
Yep.
International Coach Federation. We're both members of that organization. And it's really the capstone of everything that we do. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Barbara Fonte. I am a coach for professionals who really want to level up their performance and their happiness. And we're going live today because we all need to have some good goals, and there's a lot of information out there, some of it good, some of it bad. We're going to break that down and give you some ideas to set the right goals for you. Megan, welcome.
Thanks.
And why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and then tell us a little bit about your business first? Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, thank you so much for having me here and inviting me and setting this all up. It's fantastic. I'm so excited to be here and to be talking to everybody today. So, as Barbara said, I'm Megan. I'm the goal guru. My husband definitely came up with that name because he is very creative in ways that I am a little bit less so. But really, my specialty well, I'm a life and leadership coach. I specialize in people's careers. I help working individuals, all kinds of professions, really level up in that same way that you do, Barbara, but through like really clear manifestation. Just being really clear on where they want to go and being really clear on what they expect to get there. So I work with folks kind of across different industries, largely media, because that's been my background and where I've connected with lots of people. I also am an advocate for what I call sane and humane workplace habits. And that's everything from the way your company treats you to the way you interact with your own work. So I kind of span the range.
Yeah, I love that. Sane and humane workplace.
I got really sick of work-life balance.
Yeah, right. I think that sort of implies sane and humane, that it's more than just the balance, right?
Yeah. It's a really important interaction between what you're doing individually and what the system is like requiring of you. And so I wanted something that captured more than just the personal responsibility side of a healthy workplace.
Yeah, love it. Good. Very important.
Yeah.
Particularly today.
Yes.
So here's the one thing that sort of I notice a lot, let's just put it that way, is that there's a lot of information out there, and there are a lot of people who are experts in goal setting, and a lot of folks that tell you what to do, and sometimes the suggestions conflict with each other. So I'm curious, just from your vantage point, what do you see happening out there, and and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. There's tons of things happening out there. And I think there's currently a Threads meme going around of people making fun of influencers being like, by 25, I had $1 million and this is how I did it. And they're all like, by 25, I had a packet of cheese and this is how I did it. And it's very fun to me. But I would say the biggest mistake I see people make is trying to take other people's goal setting solutions and just put them on whole hog exactly as they are. Mm-hmm. And that kind of runs from every kind of goal setting, right? Like that's your SMART goals and your 90-day goals and your bullet journals. And when you try to take someone else's system and something that fits someone else's life and try to just apply it to yourself with no shifts or no changes, you're going to get their life. You're not going to get your life. So the biggest thing with goals really is getting clear on what you want and why before you try to do any kind of system, any kind of step-by-step. You have to be really clear on where you want to get to, where you are.
Yeah, I think that clarity piece is tough for a lot of people. And, you and I have talked about sort of the two ends of the spectrum. One where people are like, no, you need to 10x what you're doing and take these huge leaps and, hustle. And then on the other hand, it's like, no, just let it flow.
Yeah.
Have to put your energy out there and so forth. So like, how does someone know like which would suit them best? Or if neither would, where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, I would say you can pretty safely rule out that either extreme is gonna suit you pretty easily. You can be like, okay, probably start from whichever kind of side. Extremes just tend to really serve people who have already kind of made it, or they tend to be very confirmation bias, right? Like the guy who made a bunch of money in Bitcoin is gonna certainly think whatever he did is how he got a bunch of money in Bitcoin, but some of that's just luck. Um, Honestly, I think sometimes it's people think about goals as like one thing. They think about achieving goals as like one pattern. And I think as humans, we're all a little hardwired to really try to like get the answer and move on. Like we want the answer to how we can achieve our goals. And it's going to be a little different based on what your goal is or how you want to feel. So I'd say probably none of them are ever the single right answer for every individual, like for an individual person. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error, and some of it's just down to trusting yourself to know when it's time to stop pushing and when it's time to lean off, and even kind of taking some time to lean off first and then pushing slowly, or push real hard and like lean back. But like, it's really down to just like experimenting, frankly.
Okay. Yeah. See what feels right to you.
Yeah.
But let's say you're a person that you go, okay, well, I should probably have some goals. I should probably have some. Don't know what to do. I feel lost. Like, how do I get clarity? What would you suggest to somebody like that?
So, I mean, my first question to somebody like that would be like, why? Like, why do you want a goal? Is it, are you answering this question of, I need somewhere to go and I need some direction? Is there something you are missing in your life that you want to, fill that space? I've actually had clients where we've worked on specifically relationship goals and made projects around, finding a romantic partner, increasing friendship circles, finding new friendship circles for folks who have like moved. But really the first question to ask is like, why? Why do you feel like you should have goals? Do you feel like you should have goals because it's January and everyone has goals? Because if that's the reason, those aren't going to take you very far.
Yeah, I think we get stuck in the, well, I should do this.
I should do this.
And that makes sense. That sounds good.
That sounds good.
It's like, okay, well, what's everyone doing? Oh, okay. Okay. And so, what are your thoughts on the shouldas?
I mean, my thoughts on should is usually that it's the biggest, it's the red flag I look for in almost every conversation. My poor clients have started wording some of their sentences to avoid using the word should, because they know I'm gonna be like, says who? Like when you hear the word should, you're like, who says you should do that? Is the immediate first question. Is like, is there an authority that you're thinking of? Is it just society in general? And I think a lot of the shoulds come from, in particular for my millennial colleagues, I think a lot of shoulds come up from that concept of adulting, of like, I need to be an adult, but I don't feel like an adult. And like, if I do this, then I can embody adulthood. And that's kind of a place of coming from like inauthenticity. Like we've talked a lot about authenticity and like its power, and should is the embodiment of inauthenticity, because it's not coming from you.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody sets out to be inauthentic. No. I know so you're talking like as a millennial, right? So yeah. The Gen X, I was going to say Gen Z. No. Maybe I wish, but no. Gen Xer, we definitely were all about the shoulds. Okay, so this is what's mapped out. This is the right way to go. You should get a job and make money and have 2.5 kids and a picket fence and all that sort of thing. It's like you should marry this person, should go to this kind of school, all that sort of thing. So I think we just kind of inherit in our culture. Yeah. But it reminds me of that book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yeah, that was a really good book.
And so, yeah. And so for those people that are not familiar with it, this hospice nurse, I want to say her name was Bronnie Ware.
That sounds right.
think that's her. Yeah. Anyway, she heard some patterns in people at the end of their life, and she wanted to sort of, let the rest of us know, hey, guess what? Here's a warning sign. And I think it was the number one regret of the dying was that people wish they had lived a life that was authentic to who they were, not the one that they thought they were supposed to live. So, yeah. I love it.
That I actually finished that book right before my first big career change.
Oh,
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's the sign I needed. Done.
so it influenced you then?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Since that moment, I've gone through, I think this is career number 4, maybe. I started in book publishing. I worked in marketing at HBO. And then I worked at a couple of startups for a little bit. So I've done kind of all over the place. And from that book, I really got the courage to just follow what was interesting in my work instead of trying to follow the career ladder, because publishing, let me tell you, is very much like, here's the step, here's the next step, here's the next step. It's all laid out for you for the next 30 years.
Interesting. Yeah. So I love that you use the word courage.
Yeah.
You had the courage to make that. And maybe it takes a little bit of courage to create intentions and goals and plans that are authentic. Yeah. So worth it though, right?
Yeah. It's a much better time investment than creating the ones you feel like you should.
Yeah. So it sort of leads me into the whole idea of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And how those play into goals. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, everything will be kind of individual for different people. But intrinsic and extrinsic motivations can really be powerful if you know how to use them aligned with what will push you forward. A really good example of that is that let me actually back up a little bit. Intrinsic motivation really can come from just this place of I want this, I am driven to get to this place. This is a thing that I want enough to sacrifice or move or change something that might be inconvenient for me. Extrinsic motivation can be a couple of different things. People tend to think of it as the carrot and the stick kind of extra, you're trying to avoid punishment or you're trying to get reward. So intrinsic motivation tends to be a lot stronger. The pushback I get from clients on this one a lot is they're like, well, I want to do things for my kids, or I want to do things. I have an assignment from my boss that's extrinsic. I need to do that. And one of the really powerful things we can recognize is how you can actually make those intrinsic by identifying with them and really connecting with them. Sometimes that can be as simple as I just really want the best for my kid. And I really want them to be able to step into their own and really embodying that. Mm-hmm. Or, it's going to depend on the situation and the kid. I want to be really clear there. It's not an umbrella for all kids. But generally really embodying what you can want in the situation and what you can connect with. I really want this project to go well. So I can feel like I've done my best. I want it to go well so I can learn the skills it takes to put this pitch deck together. Really connecting to it on your own. There are some people, it's worth noting, that really do connect more easily with the wants and needs of other people. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. You just have to be really mindful of kind of noticing. My mom loves to do stuff for other people. She absolutely loves it. It's her favoriteest thing in the entire world. And she's a fabulous organizer because of it. She's really good at keeping schedules all together because her allegiance, that's a terrible word. Her passion is for supporting people around her, and that's at work and at home. And because she's really authentic about that being something she's passionate about, she can make it a superpower and not just people pushing her around.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Because so much of the extrinsic motivators that go flat are based in fear as opposed to passion and love, like your mom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it goes back to the why. Why are you doing this? And really dig down, when people say, well, I want to get involved in charity this year, right? I want to do something with my community. Mm-hmm. and such. So, well, okay, so why? Oh, because these people, need help. Well, why you? Like, well,
Mhm.
there's something within you, and maybe it connects with the ego, and that's okay. It's okay, right?
Yeah. It's all right.
Knowing that why is really, really helpful, right?
Yeah. And maybe it's the storyteller in me, but the life in media before I got into coaching, but um, I really like to be able to have a thesis statement before I like move into something. Like,
Mhm.
why am I doing, like, to your why, right? Like, why me? Why this? Why now? And that can be really helpful because if you can't answer those questions, then maybe you can delegate whatever it is. um,
That shouldn't feel like a hell yes on your
yeah,
to-do, so to say.
yeah,
Nothing
absolutely.
good, or it sounds good, makes sense. If it's not a hell yes,
Mhm. Yeah.
arguably don't put it on there because it's going to take a lot to get from point A to point B.
Certainly for projects, right? Like there's always like every project that you take on, every big umbrella thing you do, if it's remodeling your bathroom or like getting a new job, it's all going to come with a bulk of tasks that need to be done, but you're not necessarily passionate
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
And so it makes it extra important that you're really signed on and you're really invested in the umbrella of the project itself because you've already got enough to do that is like just like basic getting through life stuff. Like you've got enough of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what I see sometimes is that people they'll put a goal that's too big or too small or it's just not right. It's not aligned with their values and their
Mhm.
passion. And then they don't do it.
Yeah.
They don't follow through. It doesn't become a reality, and then they beat themselves up.
Yep. And then the story becomes that they can't do things for
Yeah,
themselves.
exactly. The story that they paint for themselves is not the real story, right?
Right.
Or you say, well, I don't have willpower, I don't have discipline, or all of these things that really aren't the reality of it. Uh,
Absolutely.
then we beat ourselves up. So tell me, with the people that you work with, I'm really curious. When they're setting goals,
Mhm.
I'm is there a tendency for people to think maybe a little too big, or would you say a little too small?
A little of both. Some of it depends on which of those stories they're telling themselves. I would say my the biggest thing I've kind of noticed is that folks tend to reserve their biggest projects for work, and they don't tend to keep kind of the bigger projects for at home. They really reserve like work brain space, particularly this time of year because I think companies are also setting new goals and setting new projects and putting new things on the roadmap and like really talking about it. But people I've noticed tend to reserve the most space in their goal life for around their work and their career.
Mhm. So I want to go back a little bit just to methods.
Mhm.
Right? Where do you start? What do you do? Those of us in like the training and
Yep.
coaching and personal development space, we've heard for years the acronym SMART. Make
Yeah.
SMART goals. Make them, what is it? Specific,
Specific,
measurable,
measurable, actionable, I think. Oh no, achievable.
achievable. Yeah, relevant. I think, and time based.
Yep.
Is that a good way to go about it? Are people still embracing that? What do you suggest?
I I definitely made a little bit of a kerfuffle at some of my workplaces by not being on board super wholeheartedly with SMART goals. There's a lot of value to being able to specify a goal that way. I can understand like where it came from and what value it serves. And if you're really feeling very unclear, it can be a really good series of questions to ask yourself to get clarity and to put some things aside. It's not my personal favorite because I think it's become a little corporatized, which was part of my. I was like, this is from HR. I don't want it. So I was a little bit of a pain at that particular point in my career. I was like, let's do it a new way. But for me, I think there's a real danger in constantly using the same format for setting goals all the time. Um, I don't think I set my own goals the same way, the same way year after year, like twice in the same year or something. By the end of the year, it always looks a little bit different than it did at the beginning of the year. So it can be a helpful tool, but I wouldn't rely on it exclusively. I wouldn't lean back and be like, well, if I hit my SMART goal and I can fill it out as a SMART goal, I'm done. My work here is done. I have a project. I'm good. But it can be a really helpful tool for like unclogging something. It can be really good for like pulling stuff out, but it's not my be all end all, and it's definitely not of my favorite tools.
So tell me, what is your favorite tool?
I mean, usually the ones I'm making on Canva every 2 weeks. I really enjoy making little kind of like creative goal worksheets and kind of trying them out. But really consistently for me, one of my favorite tools has been goals with a list of milestones and actions, which sounds a little exhaustive. But one of the reasons I like that as a format is I can do it one of two ways. I can start really big with a big idea and break it down and be like, oh, this actually has more than 3 milestones. So I can break it into two projects, right? I can kind of see it like analytically and broken down. So I'll even use like an example just because it's very vague to talk about it. I want to launch my newsletter and I want to grow my subscriber base by 500 people. I might have different milestones in that and realize that, oh, getting to 250 people is probably a big milestone. So maybe this needs to be like each 100 needs to be its own milestone and its own set of action steps. Breaking it down like that can be really helpful when I have something big, but it can also be really helpful when I have a lot of little tasks and I know they're all kind of related, but I don't have a core clear goal yet. So kind of on the opposite side of that, like I need to post on social media. I need to be reaching out to people. I need to be contacting and networking people. I need to be going to networking events. I can take all those little tasks and I can start organizing them by type, and that will give me some milestones. I want to make X new like professional connections this year. Mm-hmm. I want to speak at X number of events this year. And then I have all the actions that kind of go to that. And I can build that big goal back up to, I want to grow my subscriber list to 500 people.
Yeah. Chunking it down. I love that. Because then it sounds like what ends up happening is you take that goal and you pull it down to the level of activity. Mm-hmm. Right. And so the yep. sort of goal of today or this week or this month is to do this activity.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of breaking stuff down into the task. And some of that's for me just a part of my very varied career was in project management. I managed the Asana for a number of design and marketing teams, and I just made sure all of that content was very actionable. And I realized how that could work for large groups, and I started kind of just adopting it for myself. So a lot of times I start from my to-do list, and I'm like, what are the goals that are kind of in here? And start pulling them out from things I'm already working on or focused on that way.
Nice. I love that. Tell us, are there helpful hints or best practices, suggestions, things that will help people more likely achieve their goals?
Get a coach. I mean, I tease a little bit, but actually one of the benefits of having a coach and why I work with a coach and all the coaches I know work with coaches is because it can really be a helpful check-in point and like helpful to have a system or a system outside of you that helps keep you accountable and keeps you on track. I really, really like just generally for my non-coach support. I really like planning, having a day of the week to plan, having a day of the week to reflect, and then having a little planning time and reflection time in each part of my day. We talked about this a little bit, but one of the things I've been experimenting with and have been finding really powerful is actually planning my next day, right? Like, so it's Tuesday. I'll plan Wednesday when I go to sign off my computer tonight. I'll plan all of tomorrow, which is pretty common. But the step I've kind of been playing with since the beginning of the year has actually been doing my reflection and like looking back on what I achieved and like appreciating how the day went in the mornings. So tomorrow morning, I'll actually look back at this day and I'll be like, hey, that LinkedIn Live went really well, and like give myself some kudos. And swapping those for a really long time, I put a lot of pressure on myself to do both of them at night. And I was just not I was skipping it a lot. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it tomorrow. It'll be fine. But recently I've been kind of like swapping them out a little bit. And so that's been really helpful. But if you were to boil it down to just a tool, is like just built in intention setting time and reflection time. I think you'll see that on even big projects, right? They call it a postmortem on a big project, which is a terrifying name. It's awful. But yeah, like any project you want to start, you want your middle is where you're working and your end is just time to like kind of breathe and process.
Yeah, I love that reflection. If I ask people, when do you take time to reflect? They're like, what?
It's really hard. It's really hard to like justify in like, it feels like another thing to do.
Yeah.
My husband kind of teases me. He's like, in all that time of planning, do you ever have time to like do stuff? And I'm like, I actually get way more done because I took a second to like put everything in place and I can go from point A to point B to point C very quickly. And then we can go have, drinks and popcorn later. like I'm ready because everything has kind of gotten through.
Yeah, it's like you're working smarter rather than harder.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot more pleasant.
Yeah, you slow down to speed up. I had my father achieved a lot in his life. And every Sunday he would go to church. And I don't think he ever listened to what they were saying when he went to church. It was his time to go, he would say some prayers and he would take that 1 hour of the week to reflect on what happened over the course of the week, what worked, what didn't, and then in his head kind of gel, where he wanted to go. And I think that really made a huge impact.
And it's a really great point too, is that like we process things in different ways. Like I'm very verbal processor. So I really need to write things down to be able to like get the words correct. To be in more than just vibes, as it were, to like actually make the ideal whole. But I've actually had clients who go for a walk as their like reflection time. And some of them do just kind of reflect in their heads, but some of them actually record voice memos for themselves. So they can listen back later, or so they can have like a record of what they're doing week over week. Because actually saying it out loud is really helpful. Or like, I'm really impressed your dad could do all of that processing in his head because I just get lost. I'm just like, oh, and then there's another shiny idea and I'm gone. But it's really lovely that like we all kind of have our different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to different reflection types. And like the fact that he could do reflection while someone else was talking.
Yeah, the whole prayer aspect of it, which is I think very similar to when people meditate, it's just you're sort of focusing, getting the noise literally, figuratively out of your head so you can think clearly. Meditating
is actually perfect for that kind of thing. Like if you're already trying to build a meditation practice, like this might be a really good reason to do so. Like even 5 minutes, even 1 minute of just like sitting quietly in the morning can be super, super powerful. It doesn't have to be like an itemized look back on your week. You'll be surprised how much your brain gets through in a minute.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, really true. I love that. I had one of the things that my kids got me for the holidays this year was the one-line journal.
Ooh, I love those.
It's a 5-year thing, and all you do is, you don't have to commit to this long journal or diary.
Yep.
You just write 1 sentence or 2 sentences. The most there's room for is maybe 3, but you have to write really small. Just kind of what's in your head and where you are, and it's a great way to ground yourself. I love it.
It's really, really helpful. The one I created for myself for reflection, like my morning reflections, is like 5 questions. It's what are you most proud of having done? What are you most relieved is done? Like there's a space for stuff that I'm just like, thank God that's all over. I didn't have to do that anymore. I have a place for cheersing the basic stuff. I think it's probably just called cheers to the basic stuff. And that's where I put all of the like dog care and like vacuuming. And then anything that's just for me, which is like, I took an extra walk or I did something that's just about me. And then what am I most excited for coming up? And those are like kind of my 5 categories. And once I answer them, I'm often done for my morning.
That's great. Love that. Smart. So let's speak about some of the mistakes people can make, or some of the reasons why, even with putting down some, would seem like on target types of goals and intentions and desires for the year or the month, however they're measuring it. What are some of the things that can trip people up that you see?
I think one of the big ones is just not keeping them somewhere where they're front and center, like where they're top of mind. You can't see this, but my whole wall is like crazy person Post-its. But it's different, like kind of thoughts and ideas I want to keep top of mind. And up there are a couple of my declarations, a really cute calendar that I think is really adorable, but like just things I want to be reminded of, because it can be really easy to set a goal now and be like, oh, I'll come back to it at some point when I have downtime. And then next year when you're doing goals, be like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that after January 9th.
Oh, yeah.
It can be really, really easy. And like, there's always something to do. So you're never going to have like the downtime and the leisure time of, 72 hours to just be in your goal doing. Like, it's just not, that's just kind of not, you have to be connected to it so that it makes it a part of your day every day.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kind of big mistakes I also see folks making is, again, that kind of misalignment, like making goals based on what they should be doing, setting goals aligned with work before like what you actually want to be doing can be a little bit tricky. And that's a hard balance because obviously work has to get done. But like trying really hard to like connect, like put something else first that isn't your top priority. So I think there's a real amount of like honesty in goal setting that really needs to be there for it to be effective. Particularly when it comes to like, I have to put this first versus I want to put this first, is like actually acknowledging that disparity. And again, kind of like with the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, if a project that isn't your favorite has to be top of your list, finding ways you can connect your identity to it and making it significant for yourself. So if that work project has to be a top of mind, really looking at what impact it has on your life to get that project done or to work through that project and really prioritize it. It means that you'll have a raise and that'll, be able to impact your family or your household in X ways. Or it'll mean like getting a promotion, which means more vacation time, which means more leisure time. Like really getting into like what you can connect with that.
Yeah, I love that. So first of all, keep it front and center.
Keep it front and center. Yep. Be really honest with yourself about the whole thing. Like just being real, like radical self-honesty, I think is really important.
Yeah. Is it a want to or a have to? And like you said, if it's a have to, but there's no way around it, try to connect it to your values, your authenticity, sort of what's in it for you kind of thing. Yeah, I love that. And what I've noticed for people when they have certain desires and goals, like I say, okay, well, I want to write a book, this year, but they don't really want to write a book.
Right.
They don't want to do the activity. Right. Well, I want to build my business. I want to increase my sales by 20%. I want to do more sales. Sometimes they don't really want to do the sales. They want the fruits of that labor, and they want to be an author. Yeah. So you got to be in love sort of with the activities. And if you're not in love with them, maybe it's not the right goal, or maybe we need to get creative and really connect it so it keeps your motivation.
Yeah, and that also connects to another kind of common misstep I see, which is setting goals and outcomes that are contingent on other people's deliverables is very, very common. And it's really, really hard. Like I want more clients, but I can't have more clients as my goal because that's not up to me. Like my clients make that decision, not me. And to set that goal is to kind of routinely set myself up for failure. And so one of the things I work on with my clients tends to be set the goal that you want, and then let's figure out how to do it without like the contingency on other people. So like you can't set a promotion as your goal. You can set doing better at work and showing up fully, Yeah.
Yeah. The goal maybe is who do you need to be, or who do you want to be in order to have that outcome? I love that. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Setting goals from being is really, really important. Sounds really hokey, but that's actually a really key part of actually being successful at them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious. Have you set your goals, or I know you were playing with some things, for this year, and would you be willing to share them?
Yeah, so we did kind of chat like a little bit ahead of time, and I realized that I had kind of given myself a little bit more leeway in setting goals for this year than I had done. I'm actually completing a couple of programs that I'll end in January. So I was like, well, let's like kind of finish January before I get too concrete. But I really realized that like my goals are the same as they were last year, essentially. And one of the things, and just to kind of broadly kind of bring those, I want to grow my business. I want to maximize my leisure and like discovery and exploration time. And I want to deepen key relationships. Like those are the 3 goals that will probably be my goals until the rest of my life. Like they're not going anywhere. And so this year I actually started doing something I'm kind of excited about, which is I set my goals in 90-day kind of chunks. And this year I actually kind of designed it so each 90-day chunk can be like a hypothesis for each one of the goals. So it's like a little bit of a test, and I get to kind of like play with it. And I'm really, really excited because I like thought of this on like Sunday, like, and I'm like, yay! You can tell I get really excited about new ways of setting goals. But so when I was talking about the fact that I don't ever set goals the same way twice, this is exactly what I'm talking about. But so like a really good example, let me actually check one of them. So for work, my hypothesis is that if I prioritize what I want to do, my business will actually grow better and healthier. And that's my hypothesis. And I'm using that to kind of set out all of my like action steps and my goals and like what I'm focused on.
Yeah. I like that. You know what I love about what you're doing, and yes, you can see you light up when you talk about it, is that you're creative with this stuff, and it's not so inflexible, right? It really, it just gives you opportunity to do what feels right for you and still move you forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my Canva board with you guys because it is all just me making up these different sheets, and they're all very colorful. But I really love getting creative with goals, and which is why there isn't a system, right? There's a way of reflecting what you're working on, and it's going to be unique to what you're doing any single time you're doing it. So I love being creative with it. It's a lot of fun. I also really like color coding. So there's that.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that is great. And so you have yours chunked in 90 days. It sounds like, but for, somebody who's not using that specific formula, is there a rule of thumb for how often you should revisit and make tweaks and maybe make some changes or wait it out?
I mean, I would say the shortest you want to set a goal is probably about a month, because that's the amount of time it actually takes to like move something forward typically. And I would say you probably want to do at least once a year. Like you want to check in at least at the beginning and in the middle of the year. So like a mid-year check-in, I guess. Mid-year check-in. I like 90 days just because I like change. you might have gotten that. I like refreshing things. I like checking in on things, and I love new starts. And so 90 days I find is whether you do that like season to season or you do it quarterly, or you start from your birthday and set 90 days. That's always a really great kind of setup. I find that that's the ideal amount of time to get stuff done, but not like so overwhelming that you're setting up a lot of things. Another really interesting kind of way to set up your goals is to actually envision the whole big project and only outline the steps to the first milestone. So I know a lot of folks who break out all of the milestones to, like their 5-year plan, but they only set out the steps one at a time to each milestone.
Yeah, I love that. You've given us so many good tips and tricks and food for thought. And I hope that's been really helpful for everyone. I want to try to see if I can put in the comments here. Oh, there we go.
Yay.
Because I know that you've got your Substack. You've got a lot of good information out there. Yeah. Is this the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, Substack is, you might have caught on from all the newsletter references, but Substack is kind of where I'm focusing right now. I'm trying to build out my weekly newsletter. There's a new one that's up today, so definitely go check that out. But if you just kind of want to hang with me and just kind of hear off the cuff stuff, I'm on Instagram or and also Threads at the _goal_guru. Substack is where you'll find me most of the time. And of course, if you just want to connect on LinkedIn, I think you should be able to see me in here. I'm just Megan Wagner. You can find me kind of anywhere.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, I just actually joined Threads. So
I think I saw your first thread. I think it gave me a little pain. It was like Barbara posted her first thread.
Yeah, I just keeping me accountable for, getting on there and expanding and,
It's fun Twitter for right now until everyone comes over.
Fun Twitter. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I just throwing something up here. I know I've noticed different thinking patterns that are getting in the way of people really reaching their full potential, whether, in any aspect of their life, including completing their goals. So I have a quick little white paper for anybody who might be interested and might recognize some things in themselves. So we all sabotage ourselves in one way or another. And you can go there, or you can find it at Big Dream Executive Coaching. It'll pop up there in case anybody wants that information. So yeah, any final thoughts, Megan?
I think my biggest final thought is just, ask yourself why. Just be like, why? What am I doing this for? Who is this for? Who is it going to serve? What impact is it going to have? I really like doing the 5 whys, right? You start with your first why, and then you ask it again, then you ask it again. If you can get through 5 whys, you're probably in pretty good shape.
Yeah, keep digging until you
get
to the root cause of what's driving you.
There's the highlight. Keep digging.
Cool. Great way to end it. Thank you again, Megan. And thank you to all of you who are watching this either in real time or in the replays. We appreciate you, and reach out in the DMs or anywhere else that you might find us on IG or LinkedIn. If you have any ideas or you want some ideas or resources for yourself, reach out. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks.